The stars were quiet that night. They always were in the deep parts of space, far from any sun or planet. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, someone was watching. Commander stood on the bridge of his warship and looked at the large screen in front of him. He was tall and thin, with gray skin and 4 eyes that never blinked. He belonged to the Dominion, a powerful empire that controlled hundreds of star systems. His people had ruled the galaxy for thousands of years. They were strong. They were smart. They were proud. And they thought humans were weak. Had studied the humans for a long time. He knew they came from a small blue planet called Earth. He knew they had only been traveling among the stars for 30 years. He knew their ships were slow and their weapons were simple. To him, humans were like children playing in a garden full of wolves. "The trap is ready," said one of his officers. "The distress beacon is active." Smiled, it was not a kind smile. "Good, now we wait." Far away, in another part of space, a ship called the S Horizon moved through the darkness. It was a large ship, but not a warship. It carried families. It carried scientists. It carried dreamers. There were 2,400 people on board, and they were all going to start a new life on a distant planet. Captain Ho stood on the bridge of the Horizon. He was a calm man with tired eyes and gray hair at his temples. He had been a captain for 20 years, and he had never lost a passenger. He planned to keep it that way. "Captain," said Sung, the navigation officer. He was young and eager, with quick hands and a quicker mind. "I am picking up a distress signal." Ho walked over to the navigation station and looked at the screen. The signal was coming from a small moon, not far from their current path. It was weak and broken, like someone was calling for help but running out of power. "Can you identify the ship?" Ho asked. "No, sir, the signal is too damaged, but it sounds human." Ho thought about this. They were on a schedule. The colonists were waiting to reach their new home, but somewhere out there people might be dying. He could not ignore that. "Change course," he said. "We are going to help." Chief Engineer Park was working in the engine room when she felt the ship turn. She was a small woman with strong hands and oil stains on her uniform. She could fix anything. Engines, computers, life support systems. If it was broken, she could make it work again. She wiped her hands on a cloth and walked to the nearest communication panel. "Bridge, this is. Why are we changing direction?" "Distress signal," came the reply. "Captain's orders." Frowned, something felt wrong. She could not explain it, but her stomach was tight and her heart was beating fast. She had learned to trust these feelings. They had saved her life more than once. But she said nothing. She was not the captain. She went back to work. The Horizon reached the moon 2 hours later. It was a gray and lifeless rock floating alone in the dark. There was no sign of any ship, no wreckage, no lights, nothing. "The signal is coming from behind the moon," Sung reported. "We need to go around to see it." Ho nodded. "Take us around slowly." The ship moved forward. The moon grew larger on the screen, and then as they came around the curve of the rock, they saw it. Not one ship, not 2 ships, 12 ships, 12 warships waiting in the shadow of the moon like spiders in a web. "It is a trap," Sung whispered. Before Ho could give an order, the ships fired. Not weapons that killed, but nets made of electricity and metal. The nets wrapped around the Horizon and pulled tight. The engines died. The lights flickered. The ship stopped moving. Ho grabbed the communication panel. "All hands, this is the captain. We are under attack. Stay calm, do not resist." He knew they could not fight. The Horizon had no weapons. It was a ship for families, not for war. If they tried to resist, they would all die. Within minutes, the soldiers came. They wore heavy armor and carried long rifles. They moved through the ship like a flood, breaking down doors and pulling people from their rooms. The colonists screamed. Children cried, but there was nothing anyone could do. Hid in a small space behind the engine core, she watched through a crack as soldiers searched the room. They did not find her. When they left, she reached into her boot and pulled out a tiny tool. It was no bigger than a finger made of metal and glass. The scanners would think it was a medical device. They would be wrong. Commander came aboard the Horizon himself. He walked through the halls and looked at the frightened humans with amusement. They were exactly what he expected: soft, scared, easy to control. He found Captain Ho on the bridge and smiled his cold smile. "You are now prisoners of the Dominion. Your government will give us what we want, or you will never see your home again." Ho said nothing. He just looked at with steady eyes. This annoyed the commander. He had expected begging. He had expected fear. But the human captain just stood there, silent and still. Did not know that somewhere in the darkness of space, another ship was following the Horizon. A ship with no lights. A ship with no name in any record. A ship that existed only in whispers. The humans had set a trap of their own, and had just walked into it. The prison station floated in orbit around a massive planet made of gas and storms. It was called Seven, and it was one of the most secure places in the Dominion. No one had ever escaped from it. No one had ever tried. The humans from the Horizon were brought to this station in small transport ships. They were counted, scanned, and locked in cells. Families were separated. Friends were torn apart. They did not care about human feelings. To them, humans were just tools, bargaining chips to use against Earth. Captain Ho was kept in a special cell, away from the others. The walls were made of thick metal. The door had no handle on the inside. A small window let in pale blue light from the gas giant outside. Commander came to visit him every day. He asked the same questions. What were Earth's military secrets? Where were their bases? What weapons did they have? And every day Ho gave the same answer: silence. This made angry. He was not used to being ignored. His species had conquered entire civilizations. Kings and emperors had kneeled before him, but this simple human captain would not even speak. "You are making a mistake," said on the third day. "Your people are suffering. If you cooperate, I will make their lives easier." Ho looked at him with empty eyes. "I have nothing to say to you." Left the cell and slammed the door behind him. He told his guards to reduce the food and water for all prisoners. Let them suffer, he thought. Let them see what happens when their captain is stubborn. In another part of the station was working. She had been placed in a cell with 5 other women, including a young botanist named Li Jin. Jin was 24 years old and had never been off Earth before this trip. She had joined the colony mission to study plants on a new world. Now she was a prisoner, and she could not stop crying. "Why is this happening?" she asked. "What did we do wrong?" Sat beside her and put a hand on her shoulder. "We did nothing wrong. Bad things happen to good people sometimes. That is just how the universe works." "Are we going to die here?" Looked at the walls of their cell. They were thick and strong. The door was locked with technology she did not fully understand. Escape seemed impossible. But had her little tool, and she had her brain. "No," she said quietly, "we are not going to die here." Every night when the lights went dim and the guards walked away, got to work. She used her tool to open a small panel in the wall. Behind the panel were wires and circuits. She studied them carefully, learning how they worked. She was not trying to escape. Escape was useless. Even if she got out of the cell, where would she go? The station was full of soldiers. The nearest human world was 1,000 light years away. Running would just get her killed. No had a different plan. She was mapping the station, learning its systems, finding its weaknesses. If help ever came, she wanted to be ready. And she believed help would come. She had to believe it. The days passed slowly. They questioned more prisoners, but no one knew anything useful. The colonists were farmers, teachers, doctors, and engineers. They knew nothing about military secrets. They were just ordinary people who wanted a better life. This frustrated. He had expected valuable hostages. He had expected soldiers or spies. Instead, he had captured a ship full of families. "Perhaps we should send a message to Earth," one of his officers suggested. "Threaten to kill the prisoners if they do not give us what we want." Considered this. Not yet, let them wait, let them worry. Fear is a powerful weapon. He did not know that Earth was already responding, not with fear, but with something much more dangerous. Deep in the cold darkness between stars, a ship moved without sound. It had no lights. It made no heat. Its hull was black as empty space, and its engines left no trail. On radar and scanner, it looked like nothing at all, just a shadow passing through the void. This ship was called the Revenant. It was Earth's greatest secret. On the bridge of the Revenant, Captain watched a screen showing the station. He was a serious man with a hard face and hands that had seen war. He did not smile often. He did not need to. "They have moved all prisoners to the central block," reported his first officer. She was tall and sharp, with eyes that missed nothing. "Security is heavy, but not impossible." "What about the horizon?" asked. "Still docked at the station. They have searched it, but they missed the cargo." Nodded slowly. The cargo was the reason they were here, not just to save the colonists, but to protect something hidden in the horizon's hold, something they should never find. Project Hammer. It was a weapon unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Earth scientists had worked on it for decades, in secret, in bunkers deep underground. It could create a wave of gravitational force strong enough to crush anything in its path. Ships, stations, even small moons. Nothing could survive it. And now it was sitting inside a military station, waiting to be discovered. "We need to move fast," said, "before they find out what they really captured." Nodded. "The team is ready. Lieutenant Han Jun is leading the boarding party." "Good. Tell him to be quiet. We want to be inside before they know we are here." The Revenant crept closer to the station. It moved past patrol ships that never saw it. It slipped through sensor nets that never felt it. It was a ghost, and ghosts do not announce themselves. In her cell suddenly stopped working. She felt something, a vibration in the air, a change in the energy around her. Jin looked up. "What is wrong?" Smiled for the first time in days. "Nothing, nothing is wrong." "Then why are you smiling?" Put her tool back in her boot and sat down on her bed. "Because I think our friends have arrived." Outside the station, hidden in the shadow of the great gas planet, the Revenant prepared to strike. Its weapons powered up in silence. Its soldiers checked their gear. Its captain gave the final order. "Begin the operation." The humans were done waiting. Earth had always known that peace was fragile. The galaxy was full of empires and kingdoms, all fighting for power. Humans were new to this game. They were small. They were weak. And so, while diplomats shook hands and signed treaties, the military built something in secret. They called it the Shadow Fleet. Only a handful of people knew it existed: the president, a few generals, the crews who served on the ships. Everyone else thought Earth had only peaceful vessels, exploration ships, colony transports, science stations. They did not know about the 12 warships hiding in the darkness, watching and waiting. The Revenant was the first of these ships. It was built in a hidden shipyard on the dark side of the moon. Its weapons were so powerful that they broke 3 different space laws. Its crew were soldiers who had erased their names from every database. To the rest of the universe, they did not exist. Captain had commanded the Revenant for 5 years. In that time, he had completed dozens of missions. Some were rescue operations. Some were spy missions. Some were things that could never be spoken about. He never questioned his orders. He never hesitated. He did what needed to be done. Now, floating in the shadow of 7, he prepared for his most important mission yet. "The station has 12 cruisers in orbit," reported from her station. "Heavy shields, standard weapons, nothing we cannot handle." "And the patrol schedule?" asked. "They change guards every 4 hours. The next change is in 30 minutes. That is our window. Nodded. 30 minutes. That was enough time to dock with the station, get inside and find the prisoners. After that, things would get loud. In the lower deck of the Revenant, Lieutenant Han Jun checked his equipment one final time. He was a big man with a quiet voice and careful hands. He had been a soldier since he was 18 years old. He had fought in places most people would never hear about. He had scars on his body and memories in his head that kept him awake at night. But tonight he pushed all that away. Tonight he had a job to do. "Listen up," he said to his team. 20 soldiers stood before him, all wearing black armor and carrying weapons designed for close combat. "We are going in fast and quiet. Our first goal is the detention block. We free the prisoners, we find the horizon, we get out. Simple." One of the soldiers raised a hand. "What about the weapon in the cargo hold?" Jun's face grew serious. "That is for the engineers to handle. Our job is to make sure they get there alive." The soldier nodded and said nothing more. The Revenant moved toward the station like a shark swimming through dark water. It found a maintenance port on the lower section of the station, a place where the sensors were old and the guards were few. The ship connected to the port with a soft click. The airlock opened. Jun was the first one through. The maintenance tunnel was narrow and dark. Pipes ran along the walls, carrying water and air and heat to different parts of the station. Jun moved forward with his weapon raised, his team following behind him in perfect silence. They did not encounter any for the first 10 minutes. The maintenance section was automated, run by machines that did not care about intruders. But Jun knew this would not last. Soon they would reach the main corridors. Soon they would have to fight. On the bridge of the Revenant, watched the progress of the boarding team through tiny cameras built into their helmets. He saw what they saw, he heard what they heard, and he waited. "Captain," said one of the officers, "Cruiser Gamma 7 is adjusting position. It might be moving toward our docking point." "Is it suspicious or routine?" "I cannot tell, sir." "Thought about this. If they discovered them too early, everything would fall apart. The prisoners would be executed. The weapon would be captured. The mission would fail. He could not let that happen. "Prepare the main guns," he ordered. "If that cruiser comes too close, we take it out. One shot, no warning." "Yes, sir." In the detention block, Captain Ho sat in his cell and waited. He did not know that help was coming. He did not know about the Revenant or the Shadow Fleet or any of the secrets Earth had kept from him. He was just a civilian captain, and he had been kept in the dark like everyone else. But he felt something, a tension in the air, a sense that things were about to change. He thought about his crew, about and Sung and all the others. Were they still alive? Were they being treated well? He had no way to know, that told him nothing. He thought about his family back on Earth, his wife, his daughter. They would be worried, they would be afraid. He wished he could tell them that everything would be okay. But he was not sure it would be. Commander was in his office when the first alarm sounded. He looked up from his reports, confused. There had been no scheduled drills, no expected problems. "What is happening?" he demanded through his communication device. "Unknown, Commander. We have lost contact with Maintenance Section 7. Cameras are offline." Felt a cold weight settle in his stomach. This was wrong. Maintenance sections did not just go dark. Cameras did not just stop working. "Send a security team," he ordered, "now." But the security team never arrived. They met Han Jun and his soldiers in a narrow corridor, and the fight lasted less than 30 seconds. The guards were trained and armed, but Jun's team was faster, quieter, and far more deadly. Jun stepped over the bodies and kept moving. "Detention block is ahead, 2 minutes." In her cell, heard gunfire in the distance. It was faint and quick, like popcorn popping far away. The other women in the cell looked at each other with wide eyes. "What was that?" Jin whispered. Stood up and pressed her ear against the door. More sounds, footsteps. shouting in a language she did not recognize. Then the door opened, and a figure in black armor stood before her. For a moment, she was terrified. Then she saw the small flag on the soldier's shoulder. The flag of Earth. Park, the soldier asked, chief engineer of the Horizon. Nodded, unable to speak. Good, we need you, come with us. Grabbed Jin's hand and pulled her forward. She comes too. The soldier hesitated for just a second, then nodded. Fine, but move fast, we do not have much time. All across the station, cell doors were opening. Prisoners were pouring into the corridors, scared and confused but finally free. Jun's team guided them toward the docking bay where the Horizon waited. And in his office, Commander finally understood what was happening. He was under attack. The humans had come for their people. And they had brought something terrible with them. The station shook as explosions ripped through its eastern section. Fire alarms screamed. Emergency lights flashed red and orange. Soldiers ran through the corridors, trying to find an enemy they could not see. Commander stood in the command center and watched the chaos unfold on dozens of screens. His hands were shaking. His 4 eyes darted from image to image. This was not supposed to happen. Humans were supposed to be weak. Humans were supposed to be easy to control. Where are they coming from? He demanded. We do not know, Commander. They appear to be everywhere at once. It was true. Jun's team had split into smaller groups, each one hitting a different part of the station at the same time. They destroyed communication towers. They disabled shield generators. They cut power to the weapons systems. Every time they sent soldiers to one location, the humans had already moved to another. It was like fighting smoke. In the detention block, Captain Ho was freed from his cell by a soldier with a kind voice and careful hands. Captain, I am Lieutenant Han Jun. We are here to bring you home. Ho blinked in the harsh light of the corridor. He had been in darkness for so long that his eyes hurt. How many did you bring? 20 soldiers, 1 ship. That is all. Jun smiled behind his helmet. That is all we need. They moved through the station quickly, gathering prisoners as they went. The colonists were scared and confused, but they followed orders. They had been waiting for rescue, and now it had finally come. Led a small group toward the Horizon's docking bay. She knew the way because she had memorized the station's layout during her nights of secret work. Left at the blue corridor, right at the water treatment room, straight through the storage area. She moved with purpose, pulling Jin along behind her. Are we going to make it? Jin asked. Her voice was thin and frightened. Yes, just keep moving. They reached the docking bay and found the Horizon waiting for them, still locked to the station's port. Soldiers were guarding it, but Jun's team arrived from behind and took them down in seconds. Get everyone on board, Jun ordered. We leave in 5 minutes. Did not go with the others. Instead, she ran toward the cargo hold of the Horizon. She knew what was hidden there. She had helped install it before they left Earth. Project Hammer, the weapon that could end this fight forever. The cargo hold was dark and cold. Used her tool to open the false wall that hid the weapon. Behind it was a large metal sphere, covered in glowing lines and humming with quiet power. It was beautiful and terrible at the same time. A voice came through the communication system. Chief Engineer Park, this is Captain of the Revenant. Can you activate the weapon? Looked at the control panel beside the sphere. It was complicated, but she had studied the design for months. Yes, I can aim it too, but once I fire it, there is no way to stop it. Understood, aim it at the fleet. His hands froze for just a moment. The fleet had 12 cruisers, thousands of soldiers. If she fired the weapon, they would all die. But if she did not fire, her people would die instead. She started working. Outside the station, the Revenant revealed itself at last. The black ship emerged from the shadows like a monster rising from deep water. Its hull was covered in weapons. cannons and missile tubes and things that had no names in any language. The cruisers scrambled to respond. They fired their weapons, sending beams of light and clouds of missiles toward the human ship. But the Revenant was fast. It dodged and weaved through the attacks, moving in ways that seemed impossible for something so large. And then it fired back. The first cruiser exploded in a ball of fire and metal. The second cruiser lost its engines and began to drift. The third cruiser tried to retreat, but was caught by a missile that tore through its shields like paper. Captain watched the battle from his bridge. His face showed no emotion, no fear, no joy, just cold concentration. "Target the flagship," he ordered. "That is where their commander is." "Yes, sir." In the station's command center, watched his fleet being destroyed. He could not believe what he was seeing. One human ship, just one, and it was tearing his forces apart. "All remaining ships fall back," he shouted. "Retreat to safe distance." But before his order could be carried out, something strange happened. The Horizon's cargo hold began to glow with a soft blue light. The light grew brighter and brighter until it was hard to look at. And then a wave of invisible force exploded outward. Project Hammer had fired. The gravitational wave moved through space at incredible speed. It passed through shields and armor like they were not there. Every ship caught in its path began to crumple, their hulls bending inward under forces no engineer had planned for. One by one, the cruisers collapsed. Metal screamed. Engines died. The mighty ships that had terrorized the humans became nothing more than twisted wreckage floating in the void. The station itself groaned as the wave passed through it. Walls bent, floors cracked, support beams twisted out of shape. But the station was too large and too far from the center of the blast. It survived, though barely. In the cargo hold fell to her knees. The weapon had drained all power from the Horizon's secondary systems. The lights were out. The air was thin. She could barely breathe. But she was smiling. "It worked," she whispered. "It actually worked." On the Horizon's bridge, Captain Ho watched through the viewport as the last cruiser fell apart. He felt no joy, just relief, just exhaustion. Lieutenant Jun came to stand beside him. "All prisoners are on board. The Revenant is clearing a path. We can leave whenever you are ready." Ho nodded slowly. "What about the station? There are still alive in there." "Captain has a message for their commander. He says the fighting is over. They can surrender or they can die. Their choice." Ho closed his eyes. He thought about all the people who had died today, soldiers who were just following orders, human colonists who had never asked for any of this, so much death, so much pain. But his people were free. They were going home. That had to count for something. "Take us out," he said. "Get us away from this place." The Horizon's engines came back to life. The great ship pulled away from the station, leaving behind the wreckage of the fleet. The Revenant flew beside it, a shadow protecting a light. And behind them, in the ruined command center of the station, Commander stood alone among the broken screens and fallen debris. He had lost everything: his fleet, his reputation, his pride. He looked out the cracked viewport at the human ships flying away, and felt something he had never felt before: fear. The escape was not quiet. Commander stood on the damaged bridge of the station and watched the human ships prepare to leave. His fleet was destroyed. His soldiers were dead or wounded, but he still had one option left: the station's main cannon. It was old and slow, a weapon from an earlier time, but it was powerful enough to destroy a small moon. If he could fire it before the humans escaped, he could still claim some kind of victory. "Power up the main cannon," he ordered. The few surviving officers looked at him with wide eyes. "Commander, the station is damaged. Using that much power could cause a core collapse." "I do not care. Fire the weapon." The station began to shake as energy flowed into the massive cannon mounted on its lower deck. Warning lights flashed everywhere. Alarms screamed about unstable reactors and failing safety systems, but ignored them all. On the bridge of the Revenant, Captain saw the energy build up on his sensors. His eyes narrowed. They are preparing to fire. Should we move out of range? Asked. No, if we run, the horizon will be hit. They are too slow to escape. Made his decision in less than a second. There was no time for discussion, no time for doubt, only action. All forward weapons, target the station's cannon, fire everything we have. The Revenant unleashed its full power. Missiles streaked through space. Energy beams cut through the darkness. The station's shields, already weakened by the earlier battle, shattered like glass. The cannon exploded before it could fire. The blast ripped through the station's lower sections, tearing metal apart and sending debris flying in all directions. Secondary explosions followed as fuel tanks and power cores gave way. In the command center, was thrown to the floor by the force of the blast. He lay there, surrounded by fire and smoke, and knew that he had failed completely. A voice came through the communication system. It was calm and cold. "Commander, this is Captain of the Earth vessel Revenant. Your fleet is destroyed. Your weapon is gone. Your station is falling apart. You have one choice. Surrender now or die with your crew." Wanted to refuse. He wanted to fight to the end. But he looked around at the broken bodies of his officers, the burning screens, the crumbling walls. There was nothing left to fight with. "I surrender," he said. The words tasted like poison in his mouth. "Smart choice. Evacuate your people to escape pods. We will not destroy them. But understand this, Commander. If any ship attacks human vessels again, we will not be so generous." The communication ended. Lay there in the ruins of his command center and thought about how wrong he had been. Humans were not weak. They were not soft. They had just been waiting. Waiting for someone to give them a reason to show their true nature. The journey back to Earth took 3 weeks. The horizon traveled slowly, its engines still damaged from the attack. The Revenant flew beside it the entire way, a silent guardian that never left its side. On board the horizon, the survivors tried to return to normal life. Parents held their children close. Friends comforted each other. Some people cried. Some people laughed. Everyone was just grateful to be alive. Captain Ho spent most of his time on the bridge, watching the stars pass by. He had many questions about the Revenant, about the weapon in his cargo hold, about all the secrets Earth had kept from him. One day, Captain came to visit him. The two men stood on the bridge together, looking out at the endless darkness of space. "Why did you not tell us?" Ho asked. "About the ship, about the weapon, about any of this?" Was silent for a long moment. "Because you were never supposed to know. The Shadow Fleet exists to protect humanity from threats it cannot see. If everyone knew about us, we would not be able to do our job. But we were carrying a weapon of mass destruction. Do you know how dangerous that is?" "Yes, we know exactly how dangerous it is. That is why we were following you. That is why we came when you were captured." Turned to look at Ho. "You were never alone, Captain, even when you thought you were." Ho did not know how to feel about this. Part of him was angry, part of him was grateful. Mostly he was just tired. "What happens now?" he asked. "Now you go home, you see your family, you try to forget this ever happened." And the smiled. It was not a warm smile. "They will receive a message from Earth's government, a warning, a promise. They will learn that we are not as weak as they thought." Found Jin sitting alone in the ship's garden area. The young botanist was staring at a small plant she had saved from the colony supplies. It was green and alive, growing toward the artificial light. "How are you feeling?" asked. "Scared," Jin admitted. "I keep thinking about what happened, about what could have happened." Sat down beside her. "That is normal. Fear does not go away just because the danger is over. It takes time." "How do you do it? How do you stay so calm?" thought about this question for a long time. I am not calm, I am terrified. But I learned a long time ago that fear is just a feeling. It cannot control you unless you let it. That sounds hard. It is, but you get better at it with practice. They sat together in silence, watching the little plant grow. 3 months after the Horizon returned to Earth, the Dominion received a message. It was sent on all channels in all languages. It could not be ignored. The message contained video footage of the battle at 7. It showed the fleet being destroyed. It showed the station crumbling. It showed Commander surrendering to a ship that should not have existed. And at the end of the footage, there was text. The S Horizon has returned safely. All colonists are alive. We do not want war, but you should know that the Revenant was not our only secret. We have built 12 ships like it. They are watching. They are always watching. Do not test us again. The message was signed by Earth's government. It was not a threat. It was a promise. In the capital, leaders argued about what to do. Some wanted revenge. Some wanted to attack Earth with everything they had. But the wiser ones remembered what had happened at 7. They remembered how quickly their fleet had been destroyed. In the end, they decided to do nothing. They would leave humanity alone. They would pretend the humans were not worth their attention. But everyone knew the truth. They were afraid. On Earth, returned to her normal life. She fixed engines. She solved problems. She tried not to think about the weapon she had fired or the lives it had ended. But sometimes, late at night, she would go outside and look up at the stars. She would think about the Revenant and the other ships of the Shadow Fleet, floating somewhere in the darkness. She would think about all the things hiding in space that wanted to hurt humanity. And she would feel strangely safe. Because somewhere out there, humans were watching back. The galaxy was full of predators, full of empires that conquered and enslaved, full of species that thought themselves superior to everyone else. But they had all made the same mistake. They had looked at humanity and seen prey. They had not realized that humans were predators too. They had just been sleeping. And now they were awake.